$87,000. That's what Garrett Hayes felt as he drove up to his newly acquired mountain cabin, only to discover a strange SUV sitting in his driveway. But the surprise didn't end there. On the porch was a woman, blonde, angry, and holding a shotgun as if it were her divine right. "Get off my property before I call the cops," she yelled. Fresh paint, scent paint Garrett never approved of wafted through his open door, merging with someone else's supper simmering on his stove. Her drapes now adorned his windows. Garrett held the deed. She held the keys. And when the sheriff came 20 minutes later, he sided with her. "This is a civil issue," the deputy stated. "Take it to court." Just like that, Garrett observed strangers occupying his dream home with the sanction of a law. What would you do if squatters occupied your house? Leave a comment below, because this nightmare only gets more terrible before it gets better. Meet Garrett Hayes, 52. A retired union electrician for Pittsburgh, 3 decades, spent ascending frozen utility poles in February because overtime equaled survival. All of her money went into savings, or what he referred to as the coffee can. 3 years earlier, his wife, Helen, died of cancer, the type that depletes your finances before it gets your heart. She held his hand before she died, telling him, "Go live your dream, baby. Don't just exist." So he began looking. His daughter, Emily, continued sending Zillow links. His son, Travis, a contractor, offered to help rebuild whatever he bought. "Dad, you've worked your whole life," Travis said. "Do something for you." Then one sleepless night at 2 a.m., Garrett found Ida in 1970s A-frame cabin on 40 acres in the West Virginia hills. The photos showed weathered wood, a tired chimney, but views that made his chest ache. It required work, sure, but Garrett was a fixer. The cost? $87,000. A foreclosure sale. Bank-owned. Clear title, the ad read. Sold as is. He hired an inspector, foundation sound, roof reparable, wiring old but safe. A $300 title search was clean. No liens, no claims, no hauntings. So he sent the money, closed over the phone, signed the papers that made it his. 5 hours earlier, Garrett and his old friend Des, a contractor as wide as a forklift, were navigating mountain switchbacks in his F-150, packed with tools and a crate of Iron City beer. "First time seeing it up close?" Des asked. "Yeah," Garrett replied, palms greasy on the steering wheel. But as they crested the last curve, the party stuck in his throat. 3 vehicles clogged the driveway: a new Tahoe, a contractor's truck, and a beat-up Camry. Smoke curled from the chimney. "Oh, gahi, des mutirid. Someone's here." The front door burst open. Out stormed a woman in her 50s, blonde hair lacquered stiff, yoga pants, fury in her eyes. "This is private property. You're trespassing." Garrett stepped onto the gravel, holding up his deed. "Ma'am, there's been a mistake. I own this house." "That's fake," she snapped. "My great-uncle built this place." A man appeared behind her, belly under camo, red clay on his boots. "You got scammed, buddy," he sneered. "That auction was bogus. We're reclaiming family land." Garrett's pulse hammered. "I have the deed, title, insurance, everything." "The county records are wrong," she hissed. "We've been paying taxes." The man called the sheriff. And when Deputy Hooper Araveda, local good old boy with a broom mustache, shook hands with the squatters like they were old buddies. After he heard them out, he shrugged. "Civil matter. Nobody's getting evicted today. Pamela Sutherland, that was her, name's murked. Possession's 9/10 of a law, sweetheart." When the cruiser pulled away, Garrett stood frozen, deed clutched in his hand, as strangers prepared supper in his kitchen. He was robbed, all right. But not only that, he'd been legally robbed. That evening, he sat in a seedy motel, watching the ceiling fan turn. At 2, he booted up his laptop and started reading about property law. That's when he found out the truth. Pamela Sutherland wasn't some random squatter. She was one of the county's leading real estate agents, selling top properties left and right. Her picture was on every sold sign within miles. She knew that cabin had been foreclosed upon. She'd read the notice in the local newspaper. And in West Virginia, there's a little loophole known as adverse possession. If you stay in a house long enough, openly and without contest, you can claim it as your own. 10 years is the magic number. Pamela couldn't reach 10 years, but she could hold Garrett up in court for 2 or 3. Long enough to live for free and get him to give up. The following day, Garrett received a cease and desist letter from Pamela's lawyer, threatening charges of harassment and intimidation of Randall's power as the county building inspector. It was obvious now this was no error. It was a scam, charged with threatening despite the fact that there was not one shred of evidence Garrett was forbidden entry into his own home. The judge, most likely one of Randall's weekend golfing partners, issued a temporary restraining order. 500 feet. That is as close as Garrett was allowed to come to his property. The irony seared like acid. Next came the media firestorm. The local newspaper published a front-page hit job. Outsider buyer fights local family for mountain home. They made Pamela out to be the tragic victim, a local mom struggling to preserve her ancestral land from a heartless investor. Garrett, who was a retired electrician who had toiled 30 years in sub-zero temperatures to purchase this fantasy cabin, was slandered as a foreclosure vulture. The insults got ugly quick. Yankees ruin everything. Hope he drives off a cliff. Small-town solidarity lovely until it's turned on you. Then, the viral video. Pamela, tears shining, holding her grandkids on the porch, crying that Garrett was stealing their family home. 40,000 shares in 24 hours. Not only was she lying, she was acting. Garrett's name was trending and not favorably. Even his relatives in Pittsburgh began wondering what was going on. But Dez, ever the loyal one, persisted. 2 nights of insomnia later, he hit pay dirt. Randall's Construction LLC had been paid $8,500 by the bank to secure and maintain the bank-owned property prior to auction. He was meant to winterize it, not occupy it. But Dez discovered social media entries Pamela's daughter tagged at the cabin months prior to Garrett even purchasing it. They'd been squatting away prior to the sale, then just remained following it. Consider it, Dez said. Randall obtains the contract. Pamela relocates there. They wait for some unsuspecting buyer to arrive, then take claim and bleed them dry through courthouse delays. It was not bad luck. It was a playbook. When Garrett presented the evidence to Beverly, her eyes grew cold as glass. Fraud, conspiracy, theft by deception. This was no longer a civil conflict. It was a criminal case about to blow wide open. Pamela's big-shot attorneys? They fled, officially withdrew because of ethical conflicts, which is lawyer talk for we don't want to sink with this ship. Randall was suspended from his county position pending an ethics investigation. Sheriff Hooper, now in the state AG's crosshairs, had to launch a formal inquiry. But the revenge moved quickly. Garrett woke at 3 a.m. to grab a cup of coffee and found his truck destroyed. 4 flat tires with slashes. Windows shattered. Spray painted on the hood. Leave. The glass sparkled in the parking lot lights like ice. When Hooper arrived, he barely pretended to care. Probably kids. Happens all the time. Garrett stared him down. You know damn well who did this. Hooper didn't deny it. Didn't confirm it. Just stared. Back in his mildew motel room, Garrett stared at Helen's photo, her last words echoing. Go live your dream, baby. He whispered, I'm not quitting. Then came the break, a clerical landmine buried in county archives for 15 years. A 2009 tax lien certificate misfiled and forgotten. Pamela's great-uncle had owed $14,000 in back taxes. Lost his property to a tax sale. But here's the twist. The parcel description overlapped Garrett's land by 3 acres. Beverly leaned over the map, smiling for the first time in weeks. They did own property, but not this property. Garrett shelled out $5,000 for an emergency survey. 3 days later, the findings were as clear as crystal. The cabin and 37 acres belonged to Garrett legally and historically. Pamela's family had previously owned a wooded hillside next door, foreclosed on in 2009. She'd been battling over the wrong dirt the entire time. Beverly filed an emergency motion with a new survey and deed chain. The visiting judge looked over the paperwork, unimpressed. Your clients have no standing. The evidence is definitive. Eviction granted. Pamela snapped. Screaming, sobbing, escorted out by bailiffs, shouting, This is my land. You're all corrupt. In the hallway, Randall got in Garrett's face, breath sour with tobacco. "You think this is over? I'll burn that house down before you move in." The bailiff intervened. Beverly smiled. "We won, Garrett. It's yours." But sweet victory wasn't. It was empty. And then came the next punch, a phone call from the fire marshal. "Anonymous tip, hazardous materials on premises. Inspection necessary prior to eviction." Beverly breathed slowly. "They're not stalling anymore. They're holding you back." Garrett called his crew. If Pamela wanted a spectacle, they'd produce one. Des, Travis, Leanne, and investigative journalist Mara Chun, they were going to reveal it all. Garrett had never so much as set foot in the cabin. The marshal examined the metal barrels, frowning as he scraped off half-garbled serial numbers. He keyed them into his database right there on his phone and stopped dead. The drums were registered to Sutherland Construction, LLC, filed as properly disposed of 6 months ago. Randall's company. Used motor oil, the marshal muttered. Illegal storage. Environmental hazard. False report. He turned to Randall. "These are your barrels. Your mess." Randall's face went pale. Someone must have planted them." The marshal didn't buy it. "You're looking at felony charges and environmental fines up to $50,000. Randall had the marshal slap a bright red tag on the door, property condemned until cleanup. Randall had just established the very delay he desired, but now couldn't remain there, either. Pamela came raging out like a hornet from a kicked nest. "This is a setup. He planted those." She screamed, gesturing at Garrett. Mara moved forward, camera rolling. "Ma'am, the serial numbers are your husband's company." Pamela became aware she was being recorded and launched herself at the camera, screaming. State police cut her off during her charge. She struggled with them tooth and nail before being taken away for assault and resisting. The photographer recorded every second. Pamela, handcuffed and yelling, crammed into the back of a cruiser. Randall stood on the porch, shoulders sagging, his daughter Crystal holding her kids. "Please," he implored, voice cracking. "Only one more day. There are kid things in there." Garrett glanced at Beverly. She shrugged. "Your decision." Every fiber of him wanted to refuse. Wanted to see them be carted off as they were going to do to him. But he saw the faces of the kids, frightened, bewildered. 2 hours, he told her bluntly. "Personal items only. Everything else is left." That's when Crystal lost it. She bolted back inside in bedlam. Shattered glass. Spray paint slopped the walls in drip of red letters. Thief. Liar. Burn in hell. State police dragged her out, kicking and screaming. Second arrest of the day. Randall just stood there, empty. Garrett finally entered his house legally for the first time. The stench hit him like a punch. Rot sewage, mildew. Human waste plastered across bathroom walls. Pipes torn out, glass cracking under his boots. His dream house, now a crime scene. Hours later, Mara's article was live. County inspector arrested after squatting in foreclosed home. Photos galore, Randall in handcuffs, Crystal trashing, oil drums lined up like evidence. Regional news had picked it up by noon. By nightfall, Garrett's account was top of Reddit with 18,000 upvotes. The internet had turned around. The same townspeople who'd branded him a thief now branded him a hero. Even Sheriff Hooper was forced to release a statement. No wrongdoing found by Mr. Hayes. That evening, an anonymous message landed in Garrett's inbox. Attached, an audio file, his own voice threatening Pamela's grandchildren. Except it wasn't his. Wrong accent, robotic tone, an AI deepfake. Beverly called the FBI Cybercrime Division right away. The trace went directly to Randall's brother's residence. Agents stormed it at dawn, discovered the software still active. "Dad, you won," Travis told him on the phone. "It's over." But Garrett glared at the grime in his destroyed bathroom. "Did I, though?" Cleaning alone took $12,000. Hazmat, soil analysis, disposal forms that depleted his savings. Nevertheless, Des and his Pittsburgh crew showed up that weekend, eager to rebuild. Behind the walls, they discovered secret compartments packed with pilfered materials, power tools, copper wire, imported tile, all taken from job sites Randall worked on. State police initiated yet another case. It turned out Randall had been pilfering from contractors for years. Now the evidence was concrete. Pamela tried a new act sobbing on a local TV interview. I'm the real victim here. But viewers roasted her alive. Criminal cries after consequences. Randall then filed a mechanic's lien, claiming $30,000 for improvements. Beverly filed a motion before the ink dried fraudulent and illegal work. The legal grind was brutal. Garrett was $45,000 deeper now. Des asked after beers, why walk away? Garrett gazed at the bottle. Because then they win, and the next fellow endures the same hell. Word got out. The town mobilized. The owner of the lumberyard gave up materials. Electricians' union dispatched a volunteer crew. Church ladies provided casseroles. Garrett wasn't the outsider anymore. Then Randall went ballistic. He summoned a local militia, fabricated tales of government tyranny, and organized a peaceful protest. Scores of trucks rumbled up Garrett's driveway, gun-armed men, flags flapping. Local land for local people, they yelled. State police couldn't budge them public road, lawful weapons. The work came to an immediate halt. Next arrived the veterans. 50 of them, Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, standing between Garrett's property and the crowd. Their commander, a sergeant major with a gray-tipped jaw, yelled. He operated within the law. We don't bow to bullies. Within a few hours, the militia disbanded. The vets remained standing watch until the rebuild was finished. The next day, the FBI took Randall in again, this time for the AI deepfake. 10 years federal time. On camera, he cried. It was Pamela's idea. She said we could take it. Threw his wife under the bus. Pamela's license was taken away. House was foreclosed. Daughter disowned her in public. The empire of deceit had fallen. Several months later, Garrett stood on the rebuilt porch. New stain. Sturdy railings. The mountain wind brought the smell of new wood and venison chili from the church kitchen. Was it worth it, Dad? Travis asked. Garrett saw the sunset burn gold across the ridge. Ask me when it's done. 3 months after he was evicted, he had an open house, a community barbecue with everybody, veterans, skeptics, reporters, neighbors. 200 showed up. The formerly split town united, watching the man they used to despise the man who refused to back down and prevailed. I didn't come here to take something, Garrett claimed, his voice firm over the mic. I came to create something. And in spite of all this, I still want to be a part of this community. For the first time, the crowd listened. Actually listened. Then tires screeched on gravel. A car fishtailed into the driveway. Pamela, uninvited, unhinged, lurched out, mascara smeared, vodka on her breath. Liar. Thief. She screamed. This is my family's land. 200 phones came up in an instant, recording. She ran at Garrett, but the veterans intervened, creating a wall of human flesh. Pamela struggled with them, crying, eyes wide with madness. Garrett didn't blink. Pamela, he said softly into the mic, I'm sorry you lost the things you did, but you didn't lose them to me. You lost them to your own decisions. He held up a poster board as had made a timeline, all the lies exposed. Projected on the screen, photos, acts, county documents. 1972, sold to an investor. 1983, rent, not ownership. 1987, eviction for non-payment. 2009, incorrect parcel lost to tax sale. 2024, illegal squatting on my lawfully purchased house. All facts supported by evidence. The crowd grumbled. Even the supporters of Pamela were speechless as truth struck like thunder. Pamela stumbled, weeping into the gravel. I just wanted my kids to have something. We had nothing. Garrett held out a hand. Then you should have asked for help, not stolen. She swatted aside. Sheriff Hooper, belatedly doing his job, moved forward. Pamela, you need to go. Dug out of there, yelling, final shame accomplished. Then Randall's former partner, Carlos, grabbed the mic, voice shaking. Randall swindled me out of 15 grand 3 years ago. Seeing Garrett fight back emboldened me to sue and win. 3 additional locals came forward with similar testimony. Randall's network of theft and intimidation coming undone in broad daylight. A woman wearing a state badge took the Mike Attorney General's office. Mr. Hayes' case uncovered systemic corruption. 12 properties in consideration, 9 associated with Randall Sutherland. Gasps moved through the audience. This man's tenacity brought a statewide network of fraud to light. In behalf of the state, thank you. Applause started softly, then built like a thunderclap. Sheriff Hooper came up to Garrett later, hat in hand. I owe you an apology. I'll let friendship blur my judgment. Won't happen again. Just do your job fair, Garrett said. That's all anyone wants. They shook hands, cameras flashing. Morrow went live. What's next for you, Mr. Hayes? Garrett smiled. I'm keeping it. This is home, and I'm going to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. He announced free monthly property clinics partnering with Legal Aid, Veterans, and Beverly. Right there on his grass, the neighborhood started to mend. Even a pastor who had judged him approached him. I judged without knowing. I was wrong. Garrett smiled. We all mess up. Let's get on with things. Bluegrass music and laughter filled the air. Barefoot children played in grass. Neighbors sat on porches sharing food. Garrett shook hard, calloused hands that once rejected. One of them was Crystal, sober, clear-eyed. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For everything. Here. She handed him an envelope, $500, first payment toward damages. I got a job. I'll pay it all back. Garrett tried to refuse. Keep it. Get on your feet. She shook her head. I need to make it right. He accepted grace given and received. That evening, golden light washed over the rebuilt cabin. Travis and Emily showed up. The crew met. Around a fire pit. For the first time, laughter had surpassed pain. A month later, Randall was sentenced 8 years federal time. Fraud, environmental crimes, cybercrime, theft. Pamela received 3 years probation, $50K restitution, mandatory counseling. Crystal paid back in 2 years, rebuilding her life with Garrett as her mentor. The county government changed. Oversight, ethics board, term limits. Garrett's battle altered policy across the state. His cabin renovation appeared in Appalachian Living magazine. His new YouTube channel, Blue Collar Property Rights, went from 0 to 500,000 subscribers. Educating people how to defend their property, read deeds, combat HOA scams, and prevail. His Mountain Property Rights Handbook free guide reached 50,000 downloads within 6 months. The Hayes Act became law, 72-hour eviction of documented fraudulent squatters. The Property Defense Fund assisted 89 families. The town's annual Mountain Justice Barbecue became a county tradition. Garrett even fell in love again, Diane, the town librarian. Travis and Des started a construction company, booked 6 months in advance. Helen's ashes now lie on the ridge her dream realized in ways neither could have conceived. One night, Garrett saw the cabin lights twinkling off into the mountains. We did it, babe, he whispered. Other than we anticipated, but we did it. The next morning, he opened a letter in his mailbox. From Montana, I read your story. I'm battling a crooked HOA. Can you assist? Garrett smiled. Des handed him coffee. Another one? Yeah, Garrett said. I guess we're not finished yet. He gave the camera a final look. So, here's the deal if you've battled HOA nightmares, corrupt neighbors, or property scams. Tell us your story in the comments. Your voice might help someone else fight back. Subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ, where ordinary people stand up, fight back, and win. Smoke curled from the chimney. Sunlight touched the ridge. The cabin still stands proof that sometimes the good guys actually win. Garrett Hayes didn't only win back his land, he revived a community that had lost sight of what justice was. From a man all but shattered by deception, to the champion who brought corruption hidden deep in the mountains to light. One battle became a cause. One voice made the system take notice. The Hayes Act reformulated laws. The Property Defense Fund preserved families. And the cabin, that same old cabin now, stands as proof that when good people refuse to back down, even the most crooked system can be forced to bend. Garrett still gets letters from strangers, fighters, survivors, people taking their land, their dignity, their lives back. And every time, he smiles and says the same thing. Looks like we're not done yet. Because neighbor wars aren't so much about property lines, they're about holding ground when the world says move over. And sometimes, the good guys actually prevail.